UFC Fight Night, Alexander Volkov versus Tom Aspinall. Welcome to the prelim card prediction video by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by Zan, I go by Harris as usual. Fight by fight breakdown and analysis from that betting perspective specifically. Here to let you know which fights are worth the value, which fights to avoid, which underdog has the best shot at winning, and some parlay action towards the end of the video as well. For this UFC Fight Night, make sure you get your bets in early. This one is in London, UFC Fight Night London at this point. The main card starts, I believe, at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. So you definitely want to make sure you get your bets in early. Make sure also you subscribe to the channel here at Boxing MMA Picks. Make sure you hit the thumbs up and make sure that you participate in the comments. We have 13 fights total on this UFC Fight Night London card. We have 7 of them on the prelims. So we're going to get right to work with fight number 1. Mokaev taking on Cody Durden. Mokaev is the newcomer to the UFC. He's undefeated, of course, 6-0. Hands look solid. They look quick. I like his kicks. I like his combinations. Looks like he has good footwork, good quick in and out movement. That makes him a solid counterpuncher. Definitely has the ability to control center, to put the pressure on you. And I mean, looks like he's a decent wrestler as well. You know, good ground.
This is the future in a Ford Escape built for you. A future where you're the forward thinker and the multitasker.
The advertisements always get me. So Muhammad Mokaev, like I was saying, you know, looks like he's a pretty decent wrestler as well. Good ground and pound, good positional improvements. The takedown defense looks good as well. What I will say, though, is that he lacks a little bit of control. He's a bit wild. The technique needs to be cleaned up a bit, needs to be tightened a bit. And that could cost him against anyone in any given situation. Taking on Cody Durden, who beat Keiliang Aori in November. He's decent on the feet. Calf kicks are looking good lately. He picks his shots pretty well. Decent jab, decent pace, and pressure from him, at least early in the fight. Uses that pressure to go for the wrestling. He has solid wrestling, good single leg specifically, good shoots. He chain wrestles to go with it. I don't think his striking defense is the best. And more importantly, I think his cardio might be a little bit questionable with how high of a pace that he pushes. He looked visibly slower by the end of round 1 in his last fight. So that's something that could be a bit of a cautionary flag with Cody Durden. I'll keep it simple. I am going with the newcomer here, Mokaev. I feel his skill is just higher in every area. And I feel he could have the huge advantage with cardio as well as the constant pace. Like I mentioned, Cody Durden shows a good pace early in the fight, but he starts to kind of fizzle out, whereas Mokaev has shown me a constant pace throughout 3 rounds, throughout fights that have a lot of wrestling involved, throughout high-paced fights. He has shown me the ability to keep going. You know, there is caution, of course, with debuts, in addition to how wild Mokaev can be. But like I said, I do think this guy can be a legitimate prospect here in the UFC, potentially a contender at some point as well. So I'm going with Muhammad Mokaev to start us off here. We see he's the big favorite. I will say some caution as a newcomer, but if I'm looking at this skill for skill, I'm going to have to go with Mokaev almost every single time.
Yeah, the only way I can see this being some type of caution is the fact that he's a newcomer coming into the UFC. So you got to understand, obviously, their first fight. A lot of the first-time jitters, it happens a lot. A lot of these guys come in their first fight, they don't do that well. Second fight, they look really well. Cody Durden has good wrestling. He's a wrestler first. There's a wrestling background. He, in this fight, will be the better striker, but he will not be the better wrestler, in my opinion. One thing I like about Mokaev is he's relentless with his takedowns, and he can keep that pace up for 3 rounds. That's going to be big in this fight. We know, as you stated, Cody Durden, his cardio is not the best. The problem with Cody is his cardio is not the best, but when he throws strikes, he throws everything into each strike. He's a bit wild with his striking. He grapples and then he gasses after the first round and a half. That's going to be an issue here. Mokaev, as the fight goes on, is going to get easier takedowns. His top control is amazing. And again, he's from Dagestan. He went to England when he was a young guy, but he's originally from Dagestan. They all can wrestle. I think there's a lot of hype on this Mokaev guy for a reason. I think he could be a contender, and I really like him in this spot here. I'm pretty confident he gets this done here. I think UFC is giving him a fighter that's a wrestler, and he's a much better wrestler, and he has the better cardio. This guy can go forever. He can go 5 rounds. I like Mokaev in this spot here to utilize that pace to get the win.
Let's move on to the second fight. Nathaniel Wood taking on Vince Morales. Nathaniel Wood, it's been a little while since he last fought. He, since his unanimous decision loss to Casey Kenny back in October 2020. A solid overall fighter. Otherwise, he's pretty good on the feet fundamentally. Good in and out movement, clean hands, good combinations, good timing as well. I have seen him do some work against the cage and use the clinch. And of course, he can land the takedown as well. Not an overwhelming wrestler. We see just 1.29 takedowns per fight, or per 15 minutes at least. But, landing it at almost 50%. So that is something that he could resort to as a pretty well-rounded fighter. He's taking on Vince Morales, who beat Luis Smolka not too long ago. That was back in December. Decent lateral movement on the feet, a bit more of a boxing style. A lot of head movement, a lot of level changes, a lot of in and out. He has a very solid right hand. Of course, that has power behind it. 6 of his 11 wins are via KO, TKO. And of course, we saw what he did to Luis Smolka in his last fight. He's said to have a wrestling background. However, at this point, it's been 6 UFC fights and he's only landed 1 takedown. So I'm not expecting him to be a threat there. On the takedown defense side of things, Vince Morales has just 50% takedown defense. I think that's something that Nathaniel Wood can and will capitalize on. Whereas I think the striking is, kind of even. You might give the slight edge to Morales in terms of the power threat. But if we're just talking striking for striking, it is somewhat even in my eyes. So if I'm looking at the situation, somewhat even on the striking, more, or at least shows it more in terms of the wrestling advantage on the side of Nathaniel Wood, I have to think he checks more boxes here. So he is going to be my pick. I will say this is probably not something that I'm going to bet on, though. Although I feel good about him winning, I do think minus 280 is a little bit too steep. So I am picking Nathaniel Wood, but I am going to give some caution on including this fight on parlays.
Yeah, this is a good fight because on paper, when you look at it, Vince Morales, he has that wrestling background. He was a state champion, but like Chuck Liddell, who was a Division I wrestler, they didn't really use it in the UFC. They mainly like to strike, but in Chuck's defense, he used it for takedown defense. Morales, I don't think he has good takedown defense for a wrestler, and he does have good boxing. And as we know, Nathaniel Wood has been knocked out. He has been finished by strikes against John Dodson. He has been dropped in fights. So the chin could be an issue, especially fighting a guy like Vince Morales, who is very accurate of a boxer. And in this fight, he could be the better boxer. He likely is the better boxer. But the overall striking of Nathaniel Wood, he might be the better kickboxer, Nathaniel Wood. So this is a close fight on paper, but when you watch them fight, there's something about Nathaniel Wood. He has that dog in him. If his chin doesn't get cracked here, I see as the fight goes on, I see Nathaniel Wood doing better as the fight goes here. And he has really good jiu-jitsu. This guy, if he gets the fight to the ground, and he has good takedowns, he gets this to the ground, he has good top pressure, good submissions, and he's no slouch in the striking as well. Like, he can hold his own. He had a striking match with John Castaneda, who looked good in his last fight. So I don't like the odds at all, but I'm pretty sure Nathaniel Wood gets this done here. He has that dog in him. And if this is somehow a close fight, we know we have the English judges to bail us out and give Nathaniel Wood that decision. But I think that Nathaniel Wood should win a unanimous, clear decision against Vince Morales.
Moving on to fight number 3, we have Cory McKenna taking on Elise Reed. Elise Reed lost to Sijara Eubank in July. That was at 125 pounds. She is back in her weight division for this fight. She likes to keep it on the feet, minus the Eubanks fight, which you almost can't even count. Looks decent on the feet, nice jab, has a really well-timed right straight as well. She's shown me decent striking defense in her fights. She's shown me decent kicks. What I do like best about her stand-up is sort of a consistent pace coming forward. pretty diverse in her striking as well. And she has shown me some decent takedown defense. Again, minus the Sijara Eubank fight, because that was just in another weight division. Looks to be good on top. If she does get on top of you, good ground and pound as well. But of course, this is somebody who, lost her debut. Yes, it was in another weight class, but that could play a little bit of a role on your psyche here. I don't think it'll matter too much. She's taking on Cory McKenna, who hasn't competed since November 2020. That was a unanimous decision win over Kay Hansen. She's on a 4-fight win streak, decent hands, decent combination. She looks very comfortable on the feet. Good jab specifically. Her boxing technique, I think, is pretty decent. Not going to see many kicks from her. And she has shown me good takedown defense in her last fight. And I've even seen her just find a way to get on top of you. Nothing too crazy, only half a takedown per fight in a couple of UFC fights. But, she has shown me that ability to get on top. I'll keep it short. I like McKenna here. Not only does she have the home crowd in her favor, of course, being in the UK, but I think she has better striking. I think she is strong enough to stop any takedowns that Elise Reed might attempt. And I think she's strong enough to potentially attempt them on her own, if not sort of control Elise Reed against the cage. So I like McKenna here. Again, better striking, I think, is going to be the story of this fight. And it's maybe not that she's a better overall striker, but I think her forward pressure along with her boxing will look better in the judges' eyes, will allow her to score points, and will allow, you're probably looking at a 29-28 potential unanimous decision for Cory McKenna. So I got Cory McKenna in this one, minus 240. You never know what can happen in women's fights. So there is naturally some caution there, but I do like Cory McKenna here.
Yeah, I was going back and forth on these two girls because one thing I noticed when I was watching a lot of the footage was both of these girls are well-rounded. Elise Reed might be the more technical striker. I give McKenna, I think McKenna is probably the better wrestler. I've seen her slam girls. And at her age, at 22, you got to think that she's going to greatly improve from her last fight. Being a young fighter in the game, usually you make those big improvements early. Think John Jones, right? So at 22, you got to think she hasn't fought since November 14, 2020. That 1 year makes a big difference here. And one thing that's going to make me take Cory McKenna is that she has that dog in her that I spoke about in the last fight, and that's something that you're kind of born with. And when the skills are pretty close, again, I give Elise a slight technical advantage, but I give Cory the aggression, the power in terms of striking. But I do give Cory the advantage in the grappling. So when you see that the fighters are pretty close, I like to look at who has that dog, and I see it with Cory McKenna. And at 22 years old, she's showing a high IQ at that age. She could be something special. She's only going to get bigger at this point, get stronger as she matures. This could be someone we're going to be talking about in a couple of years. But I like Cory McKenna here. I think she's going to rough up Elise Reed here, get it dirty here. And I like her cardio. I like her pace. She can keep that up for 3 rounds. So I'm going to go Cory McKenna here to utilize some wrestling and get the win here.
Fight number 4, we have Jack Shore taking on Timur Valiev. Jack Shore beat Ludovic Sholinian back in September. He has that sort of relentless wrestling type of style, really good entries, really good takedowns. He's good on top. He's good at positioning. He'll chain wrestle. He'll look for and he'll land that rear naked choke as well. We see him, of course, undefeated at 15-0. 7 of those wins, not only are they via submission, but they're specifically via rear naked choke. The stand-up is more than serviceable as well. I think it's pretty decent overall. Good jab that he uses pretty regularly. We see he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here, so a good jab could definitely work wonders for him. Good in and out movement and a decent low kick. Again, being the taller, longer fighter, a low kick could help you with some distance control, especially going up against a Timur Valiev, who, by the way, had the majority decision win over Raoni Barcelos back in June. But I speak about that distance control because Timur Valiev, we know him to have super quick hands. We know him to be very active, throws a lot of strikes. He's always moving. Trains with Frankie Edgar, trains with Edson Barbosa. Zabit as well, Rice as well. So, not surprising that he has that kind of striking to his name. Has good fakes and feints, good level changes as well. He has a very diverse approach to his game. He's good at putting pressure on the feet, as well as a very, again, like I said, active style of attack. And of course, he can land the takedowns. I mean, he's Russian. He's shown it. He can land those takedowns. He can stuff the takedown as well. But he's much more of a striker than he is a wrestler. This one's very interesting because we see Timur Valiev as the favorite at -150. We see Jack Shore fighting at home. Again, this is a UK card at +125. I actually like Jack Shore here. I think back to the Trevin Jones versus Timur Valiev fight, and not because Trevin Jones won, because Valiev was winning that fight until that moment, but Trevin Jones was able to get a takedown on Timur Valiev. That kind of told me everything that I need to know. I like Trevin Jones. I respect Trevin Jones's game. I think Jack Shore might be a stronger wrestler here, comparatively speaking, or at least more intentional with attempting those takedowns. And if Trevin Jones was able to land one, I think Jack Shore will be able to land at least one as well. I do think Valiev is better on the feet, but I think Jack Shore is more than serviceable enough to sort of hold his own. Valiev in his last, I think, 2 fights hasn't really been too impressive on the feet, in my opinion, in terms of his activity levels. So I think Shore kind of will be able to maintain his own. Again, hometown advantage, like I said. And like you mentioned in the previous fight, if this is something that is close, we know he's going to have the naturally speaking, the side of the judges. It might not be the judges intentionally. It might be the crowd reacting to what Shore does. And it would make a closer decision lean more in Shore's favor. So I am looking for Jack Shore to remain undefeated here. I think he has a bit more of a path to victory. I know Valiev has the wrestling. I know he has the takedown defense, but I have seen him be taken down. And I think Jack Shore is somebody who can capitalize on that. So I'm going with the underdog. Jack Shore is my pick.
Okay, so Jack Shore, yeah, he's from Wales, but yeah, that's in the United Kingdom, so he's gonna have the crowd, the judges in his back pocket if it's somehow close, if it's a close fight. Yeah, this is tough, man. Jack Shore is a weight bully. He was a featherweight, in Colby Covington's words, calling Poirier a weight bully. I think Jack Shore fits that mold, man. He was a featherweight, and then all of a sudden, 2018 and on, he went down in weight and he's fighting these smaller guys. So he's gonna have the size against a lot of these guys in the division, being a weight bully. His striking is pretty average. Striking there's nothing there, but he does have straight jabs. It's effective. He can land, but the technique, the speed is not really there. But again, he's a weight bully, so he's bigger than the guys he's fighting. So he can just push through a lot of things, being that bully there. So in this fight, though, man, yeah, I'm not sure, man. A lot of people are looking at Jack Shore as getting this done. The odds opened up, and they're closing in. This is going to be a close fight when it comes to fight night, because a lot of money is coming in on Jack Shore. 80% on Tapology is going with Jack Shore. I'm not. I'm going with Timur Valiev. I just believe that the striking alone is so far apart from each other, that like Valiev can hurt Jack Shore in the first 2 minutes to slow him down, like hurt up his legs. This guy is really quick. And if you look at his fight, the fight that he lost, he was winning the first 2 rounds. What was that guy's name? We just saw him last weekend.
That was Trevin Jones.
Okay, so Trevin Jones. So he was piecing up Trevin Jones worse than that newcomer, Joe Basharat, did. He was piecing up him much more than that guy was. And Basharat was destroying Trevin. So I'm just saying, this guy's good. This guy was piecing him up more than the newcomer that everyone's talking about. And obviously he got caught. Now in that fight, he did get taken down. But if you really watch that takedown, he was kind of like, he went for a spinning back fist or something spinning. And then as a result of that spin, he's turning back around. And then that's when Trevin just kind of like pushed in and got the takedown. So he was off balance. He was spinning. It was perfect time for Trevin to get that takedown. And it was at the end of the round after beating him up for 4 minutes. It was at the end of the round. So really trying to get up when there's 30 seconds left or just let the round go. Yeah, I like Valiev here. I think he has good enough wrestling to keep us on the feet. Even if Jack Shore gets him down in that first round, I think Valiev will survive the first round. And then as the fight goes on, the takedowns will be harder for Jack Shore to get. And again, as I said, the striking is night and day. So I'm gonna go with Valiev to get it done to beat the weight bully in this spot.
All right, let's move on to fight number 5. Nikita Krylov taking on Paul Craig. For Krylov, he lost to Magomed Ankalaev back in February 2021. So, of course, just over a year since his last fight. A bit of a karate style on the feet. He's a well-rounded fighter, though, with a bit of everything. I like his movement. I like his striking. It's pretty diverse. Comes from different angles. Solid, diverse combinations as well. And, of course, I mean, he has the wrestling. He has the takedowns. Just under 1.5 takedowns per fight, only 33% accuracy, which is okay. He can grapple, and again, he does solid work against in the clinch against the cage when needed. Just again, a decent overall fighter. He's not gonna overwhelm you in any one specific spot, but he's one of those fighters that can do sort of a bit of everything. Taking on Paul Craig, who beat Jamal Hill back in June. Half decent stand up. Muay Thai like, a lot of kicks, doesn't really have the best striking defense. He has some takedowns, of course. We see 2 takedowns per fight, 25% accuracy. Really good at making positional improvements, of course, opening up opponents for ground and pound, opening up opponents for submission attempts. We know he's a jiu-jitsu fighter. Even if he pulls guard, he's somebody that is dangerous. Almost all of his wins are via submission. He wants it to be a grappling match, and he's definitely willing to pull guard for it. Paul Craig matches are always tough to predict. We saw what happened in that Jamal Hill fight. You know, he just let Jamal Hill on top of him and then captured that elbow twice, or whatever happened in terms of the exact submission itself. But, you know, since 2017, Nikita Krylov really has only lost to the elite. You know, he lost to Magomed Ankalaev, which I spoke about. And let's just take a look at his record here. He lost to Magomed Ankalaev, like I mentioned, in his last fight. He lost to Glover Teixeira, lost to Jan Blachowicz. And then you'd have to go all the way back to 2016 when Serkinov was still pretty decent. Lost to Misha at that time. And then you got to go all the way back to 2014 when OSP was pretty solid. That's when he lost to OSP. So this is somebody who really only loses to the highest level of competition. I don't feel like Paul Craig is that level of competition in terms of the people that he's lost to. Meanwhile, Paul Craig, he's unbeaten since 2019. So something's got to give in some ways. Paul Craig has been getting it done, but it is really hard to rely on him. Again, you know, pulls that guard, you know, has the grappling knowledge. He can easily lose a round by pulling guard and allowing his opponents to be on top for the round. But we saw, again, what happened in his last fight with Jamal Hill, where you may have thought Hill was going to cruise to a round 1 win, and then he ends up getting submitted. I think Krylov has the better stand-up overall, at the very least more reliable stand-up. I also think he's the better wrestler. Of course, the grappling is in favor of Paul Craig. But I do think Krylov is maybe knowledgeable enough on the ground with the grappling to keep him out of danger. I have to go against Paul Craig again. I mean, he's just somebody I can't really bet on. I know he's dangerous. I know he's a legitimate threat in terms of his submissions. But Krylov has to be my pick here. You know, to me, I think he's the smarter pick, the more reliable pick, despite the specialty that Paul Craig has, despite the threat that he is. He's usually losing in those situations before he pulls it off. So unless he pulls it off, it sounds like a loss to me. So I got to go with Nikita Krylov.
Yeah, your last couple sentences sums it up here. I'll make mine real fast. Paul Craig is a home run hitter. He needs to hit that home run. And like you said, he's losing the fight until he gets it. You look at the Ankalaev fight, MMA math does not work. I'm not a believer in it. But watch that fight versus Ankalaev, beat Paul Craig pillar to post for 14 minutes and 50 seconds. And then Paul Craig lashed on a submission in his guard and won the fight with 1 second left. When you watch Krylov's fight with Ankalaev, they went to decision. That's the first thing, okay? So they went to decision, but in that fight, strikes were 47 to 43. So they were 4 strikes apart. The next thing, Krylov won the first round. He won the first round against Ankalaev on all the judges' card. So that just shows you the quality here. If Krylov can avoid the submission, that home run hit, he's gonna win this fight. He also got a takedown against Magomed Ankalaev. And Magomed Ankalaev, I'll tell you, I'm really high on this guy. The fact that he got a round off of him is super impressive. When you look at Paul Craig, he won only 10 seconds of that fight. He lost 14 minutes and 50 seconds of that fight. I'm going with Krylov here. He's getting it done. He avoids the home run hit. He avoids a submission. And again, he has jiu-jitsu. This guy's really good as well on the ground. He can hold his own here. I'm not forgetting Paul Craig used to get crushed by people. I know he's getting a couple of wins, and there's a little hype on him right now. I'm not falling for it. He's still that guy. He's still that punching bag. I'm going Nikita Krylov to get it done.
Let's move on to the 6th fight. We have Shamil Abdurakhimov taking on Sergei Pavlovich. Abdurakhimov is on a 2-fight losing streak. He lost to Chris Dawkins in September. This is a 40-year-old heavyweight. You got to think he's potentially on his way out at this point. Kickboxing style doesn't really throw a lot, though. We see the striking rate there pretty low. Slower pace kind of fighter. He kind of lulls you to sleep. He can definitely land, though. He's somebody who has a pretty decent accuracy, some pop on his punches as well, naturally, as a heavyweight. He can land takedowns, just over 1 per fight. Only 24% accuracy. I wouldn't really call it a strength of his, but not exactly a one-dimensional fighter. Taking on Sergei Pavlovich, who last competed all the way back in October 2019. Granted, he's on a 2-fight win streak. He was in the top 15 before his absence. So this is somebody who is looking to kind of pick up where he left off. Like I said, he's on a 2-fight win streak. Clean hands, good dangerous right hand. He's essentially a boxer. Don't really see many kicks from him. He has a good stiff jab. Again, unsurprisingly, as a heavyweight, he has power. 11 of his 14 wins are via KO, TKO. And his activity is solid. I think that's probably the most important factor in this fight. He stays in front of you. He wants to exchange. We don't know what we're going to see from Pavlovich to some degree for as long as he's been out. But at 29 years old, 2.5 years off can potentially bring you into your athletic prime, as opposed to him coming back as a 36-year-old, as an example, and you wondering why he took so much time off. So I can potentially see a lot of improvements in Pavlovich's game here. But even if no improvements have been made since 2019, I still have to feel pretty good about picking Pavlovich here. I think he's the better striker. I think he has more activity. I think he's more willing to engage. He has that power to finish it in the first round. And again, I just think he's a little bit cleaner and more intentional with that striking. In fact, I do think he potentially ends this one in the first round. I wouldn't make that bet specifically, but what I would bet on is Pavlovich winning this match. Minus 300. This is potentially looking like a parlay piece here outside of a heavyweight beware. Pavlovich is going to be my pick.
Yeah, you got to go with Pavlovich. Where is he from? Is he Russian?
Says he's Russian. Yep.
Yeah, this guy, he's a Greco-Roman wrestler. So that's his background. So he does have that. And then obviously he's going to be the better striker here. Shamil's old. Shamil is going to get knocked out here, likely in the first round, but just be safe. Take Pavlovich to win the fight. I think he has him. I think he's going to keep it on the feet. I think Shamil's going to slow down, or even in that first round, I think Sergei can land that bomb. Just remember, Sergei's first fight in the UFC was against overing. So clearly, the UFC expects a lot of this guy, giving him overing in his first fight. So I think they're setting him up here to win. They need some new blood in that heavyweight division, and I think Sergei's that guy. So I'm gonna go with Sergei here to push Shamil away.
All right, let's move on to the final fight of our prelim card. We have Mike Grundy taking on Makwan Amirkhani. I had a bit of a tough time choosing a winner in this one. Mike Grundy lost to Lando V via split decision. That was back in May. Tough fighter, is good size, good physique, good strength for this featherweight division. His stand-up is okay, definitely has pop. He can switch stance. He usually controls center. My biggest gripe on him, though, is not the most active hands. He does a lot of watching, keeps the hands up, in and out movement, but not really throwing anything with intention. That said, I mean, it could be because he's a wrestler. Good takedowns. He's strong on top. We see he lands almost 4 takedowns per fight. Greco-Roman wrestler. So he has that style of wrestling where we know he's going to chain them together. We know he's going to be relentless. But his last fight was interesting. Again, that was versus Lando Venata, where he just couldn't land that takedown to save his life. And I think that maybe raised some cautionary flags as it relates to this fight. Now, Makwan Amirkhani, of course, is a much different opponent than Lando Venata. But nonetheless, I think it still raises some flags here. Amirkhani lost to Lerone Murphy back in October. If you recall that fight, unsurprisingly, Lerone Murphy as the striker. Makwan had control of him in round 1 with the takedowns, with the ground game, with the top control. And I think he was almost getting it in round 2 before Murphy knocked him out, if I remember that second round correctly. On the feet, Amirkhani is a southpaw. He's not the most active striker in his own right. We see his striking rate even lower than Mike Grundy's. Although the stand-up is decent. He moves pretty well on the feet. He takes his time. The hands are quick when he decides to throw. He can be a dynamic striker. He can diversify his strikes as well. But again, we're looking at 2 fighters that just don't really throw enough because, again, Amirkhani, his strength is in his takedowns. We see he averages 4 takedowns a fight. His ground game, his submissions, his top control, his positional improvements. These are things that he's really good at. His submissions as well. 11 of his 16 wins are via submission. One big concern with Amirkhani, though, is his cardio. He definitely slows down. Although he still goes for the ground game, he definitely slows down as the fight goes on. We know Amirkhani is going to be the taller fighter here by 3 inches. I think he's going to stay at range, more likely to do so of the 2 guys here at least. Both guys will shoot for the takedown from anywhere. Both guys may rely on their wrestling to try to win rounds. And funny enough, both guys don't really have the best takedown defense. So I think takedowns will be there on either side, depending on who goes for it and depending on who goes for it in a more effective way. That said, I'm leaning towards Amirkhani. What I will preface that with is don't bet on this fight at all. You can't feel good on either side. Even if you like Grundy, I would tell you not to bet. Even if you like Amirkhani, I would tell you not to bet. But like I said, I am leaning a little bit towards Amirkhani. I think his IQ is a little bit better. I think he knows how to use his takedowns better. Grundy's a bit basic to me in how he fights in terms of his approach. Whereas I think Amirkhani, again, has the ability to be more dynamic and X factor here. He's probably hungrier. Mike Grundy, yes, has lost 2 fights in a row, but Amirkhani has lost 3 fights in a row and very likely is fighting for his job here. I don't know if Grundy is quite fighting for his job. Yes, 2 losses in a row is risky, but he's a UK fighter and this is a UK card. So I'm thinking Amirkhani is going to be the hungrier fighter here, and I think that's going to allow him to pull it off. So I'm going Amirkhani for my second underdog of the prelim card.
Yeah, this is a tough one because you can't really trust both guys. I think that Makwan is the better jiu-jitsu fighter in this fight. I think he has a better jiu-jitsu. But I believe that Mike Grundy's the better wrestler. I think he's going to be able to dictate pretty much if this stays on the feet or not. But Makwan in that first round can take down anybody. So this is definitely a step down in competition for Makwan. Not really. because he fought his last fight was against the guy that just got crushed, Kamuela Kirk. But prior to that, he's fought Edson Barbosa, he's fought Shane Burgos. So compared to those guys, Grundy is definitely a step down, and he's fought Lerone Murphy. But Makwan, his cardio, he's first round, and then after that, he's completely different. I think that Grundy can last a bit longer with the cardio. I think Grundy has bad cardio as well, but I think Grundy has a bit better cardio than Makwan. And in a fight where, if this turns into a wrestling match, I can see Grundy just laying on top of him for 2 rounds, 3 rounds. If it turns into a striking match, because they both have that wrestling, it could cancel out. I like Grundy's straight. I like his straight. I see Makwan gets pieced up by that straight almost every fight. And that's one thing in Grundy's basic striking game, that he has a really good straight. It's powerful as well. So I could see him landing that straight. I think he can actually win rounds in the striking versus Makwan, especially after that first round. So I can see Makwan coming strong first round, but as the fight goes on, I like Mike Grundy here. And I wouldn't be surprised Mike Grundy just wins all 3 rounds. This guy is, compared to Makwan, this guy's going to be physically stronger. He's going to be stronger. The strength might just be the reason why he can just fling him around. Makwan quits in his fights. He gasses after the first round. So I can't go with him. Again, Grundy is not a vet. He's not someone that I can trust either, but Makwan, I've seen him quit many times. So I'm going to go Grundy here, having a bit more fight in him, the stronger guy, the better wrestling. And I think his stand-up, I think it can surprise. I think he's going to be improving, because again, he's a wrestler first. He's improving the striking after every fight. He goes back to training, he practices, he gets better. So I wouldn't be surprised that Grundy looks much better in the striking, where Makwan doesn't really make that much improvement. So I'm going to go Mike Grundy here to get it done.
All right, let's take it to Vegas. Let's consider the prelim card, and let's start with some underdog action. Who are you taking a look at?
Okay, who's the underdogs?
Card is all out of sorts for now, but underdogs, you're looking at Cody Durden, Vince Morales, Elise Reed, Jack Shore, Paul Craig, Shamil Abdurakhimov, and actually, let me double check, and Amirkhani.
Where's the Molly McCann fight?
That's on the main card.
Well, that's the main card. Okay.
Yeah. Card order is all out of sorts for now. I had to go based on ESPN, which is based on UFC.com. So that's the order I'm sticking with for now.
Yo, I'll be honest though, I really believe that 90% of these favorites are gonna kill these guys, man. There might be one underdog that pulls it out, but I really feel that the prelims. But again, anything can happen in UFC. I've never made such a statement before on this channel, but I think I went with favorites on this card. But if I have to pick an underdog, man, I'm not gonna salt up my
Always fair to skip. I think that also sends a message. If you're not confident in an underdog, I think that sends a message.
Yeah, because for the fans,
not to chase it.
Yeah, for the listeners, like Jack Shore makes sense, right? But he makes a lot of sense. If I have to put one down, but I also think Timur Valiev is a hard opposition. So just to keep the show going here, I picked Timur Valiev in my fight prediction. But if one of these underdogs have to get it done, I think Jack Shore has the best chance out of these guys.
Yeah, and I am going to echo that. I will kind of put my name behind that, because I am picking him. Depending on how this looks during the ring walks, I might even make a straight up bet on him. Not to say I feel great about his chances, but again, seeing him as the underdog, I think this is maybe a 55-45 fight in favor of Jack Shore, in my opinion. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one turns out. In terms of a favorite pick or a parlay piece, which couple of fights are you looking at?
All right. So, what happened to the Ilya Topuria fight?
That moved to the main card as well.
Okay.
Yeah, the order is all out of whack. Typology hasn't made their update yet.
That's cool. I was just checking. I was just wondering, because Ilya is one of my top 5 guys in the whole entire UFC. So I thought something might have happened, like thankfully you're telling me it just got moved to the main card and not canceled. So, but as far as my parlay pieces, I like Nathaniel Wood. I like Nathaniel Wood. See, I'd say Cory McKenna, but honestly, as a gambler, you don't want to really put a lot of money in the female divisions. So I'm not going to throw that in, but I think Cory gets it done, but I'm not going to throw that in. So I got Nathaniel Wood. I got Mokaev. And Krylov is on the prelims, eh?
Yep.
Okay. Man, I want everyone to win. So I just give me 10 seconds here. Let me see. Oh, man. Yeah, Nikita Krylov, man. He's gonna whip this guy. Pillar to post.
Good value there, plus 159. $100 will return $259. For our bigger bettors, $250 would return $647. If I'm taking a look at a couple of picks on my end, I will echo Mokaev. I feel pretty good about him. I also feel pretty good. Yes, it is a heavyweight beware, but I do feel pretty good about Sergei Pavlovich pulling it off. To your point, I want to go Krylov, but Craig somehow hits that home run. So there is
Hold on. Sorry to cut you off. But I forgot about Pavlovich. On my screen it's saying he's not in the prelims.
He's there.
So I want to take. Sorry to do that, man. I want to add in Pavlovich, and I have to take out Krylov because I want my guys to win, man. Like there's no way I'm gonna let this go and not have my guys win some money this weekend.
All right, so just putting that on paper, then we're saying
it's important.
Daniel Wood and Sergei Pavlovich.
Yes, it's very important these guys win, man. So I have to cut you off. It was an important interjection.
Absolutely, always important to win. So in that case, that would be a plus 120. $100 would return $220. For our bigger bettors, $250 would return $550. And yes, again, very important for the listeners, very important for the viewers, because two of these picks are picks that I echo as well. Mokaev as well as Sergei Pavlovich. My third pick has some risk to it in that it is a women's fight, but I do think that for as unpredictable as women fights can be, sometimes the better fighter is clear. And I think it's kind of clear in favor of Cory McKenna. Again, you mentioned her age, you mentioned her potential improvements with the time that she's had off. And I think she has just the better tool set to win that fight. So that would be a plus 130. $100 would return $230. For our bigger bettors, $250 would return $575. So we are going to sign off on that note. Make sure that you participate in the comments. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel here at Boxing MMA Picks. And of course, make sure that you hit that, again, subscribe button, hit the thumbs up on this video as well. We definitely want to hear from you in terms of how you feel about our picks, in terms of what parlay pieces that you're considering, or if you want additional insight on something very specific that you're considering, drop that in the comments as well. We'll be more than happy to have that discussion back and forth there. Now, this has been the UFC Fight Night London, aka UFC Fight Night Alexander Volkov versus Tom Aspinall prelim card prediction video. As usual, he goes by Zan, I go by Harris. We are Boxing MMA Picks, and in our usual fashion to sign off, let's get this money.
Let's do it.